Welcome everyone to this special LinkedIn Live edition. Usually it's the check-in with the doctor, but I'm not going to call this the check-in with the doctor because this is a very special conversation. I'm joined by someone who I've gotten to know quite well over the past 6 months or so, Mr. Xavier Agnetti. And in fact, when he and I first met, I was actually told that I pronounced his name correctly, which delighted me a great deal. And I've invited Xavier to join me today because we are very excited to announce the launch of the French translation of the 6 Habits. Mr. Agnetti, thank you so much for being here, sir. How are you today?
I am very good, Chris. Thank you very much. And thank you for having me today.
Well, first of all, congratulations on completing this project. It was a massive undertaking, and I'm excited to ask you a number of questions and have you share with our audience, whether it's folks who may join us live or folks who may listen after the fact, about sort of the journey and even what inspired you. But before we even do that, there might be some folks who may not know who you are. So do you mind taking just a minute and introducing yourself?
No problem. With pleasure, Chris. So I'm Xavier Agnetti. I am French. I am based in Paris, and my role today is I have the delight to lead the pre-sales team at Sprinkler for South Europe. And so I have a pretty significant team that is growing, that has grown significantly over the last 6 months to a year. And so I came to know you through the book of the 6 Habits, and I think I read the book the first time maybe a year ago, maybe a bit less than a year ago. And I think I read the book back to back in probably 3 hours, 3 or 4 hours, mainly back to back. And it was the aha moment that I had when reading the book was, okay, this is exactly how I am trying to position it to my team and how I am onboarding my team. But now I know with that book, I will have a framework to help my team grow and do that consistently, which before that, it was a bit more artistic.
Yeah, that's fabulous. But by the way, Michael Balzer's with us, and incidentally, if anybody else has joined us live, we'd love to see your name and say hello. So Michael, it's good to see you. Thanks so much for joining, and I hope we'll have others say hello. So Xavier, thank you so much, first of all, for those kind words. The first thought that comes to mind is you as a senior sales engineer leader, somebody who's been doing this for a long time. When you first picked up the book, did you sort of wonder to yourself, what could this person or anybody else have to teach me or tell me that I don't already know and haven't already learned for myself? Did you sort of have that thought or gut feel?
Yeah, no, sure.
Before you read the book?
Absolutely, and I'm not sure that she's with us today, but one of my very good friend that used to be a colleague, but then is becoming a friend, Laura, is doing the same thing, and actually was telling me at first, yet another book. I will maybe not necessarily learn anything new here. And she actually did reading the book after the fact. And on top of getting a framework, there are always tools that you don't necessarily know. I can think of the 3V methodologies to answer the questions, or the matrix, the 4D matrix to handle the Q&A live. All of those are tactics that I think I was using more or less naturally, in most cases, or not. and having a framework like this help you being good or even great systematically.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I really appreciate you saying that. I mean, I think a lot of times, and I've heard this from a number of people, they said that, I realized that I was doing a lot of the same things that you talk about, but I'm not sure I ever realized that I'm not sure I ever articulated it and thought about it quite the way you positioned it. Incidentally, I have to say, I have to share this link. So Muhammad Amr posted, "This book changed my life and made me choose the best career ever." Muhammad, it is so nice to hear from you, and I cannot tell you how much that means to me.
But actually, Mohammed is a perfect example. So Mohammed read your book while interviewing with me, and with Roland in our Dubai office. And I'm not sure that the book is the only reason why he got eventually the job, because Mohammed is part of our team now. It's great to have him here today with us. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think I've already recommended your book in English to more people, that I've been interviewing, because I think it's a great asset for seniority, but an even greater asset for people that are willing to get into the job and do it right.
Yeah. Well, and I've heard from a number of people who are 20 years into the profession. This is everything I wish I knew or was told 20 years ago. So you mentioned the English version of the book. Let's transition into what you've now accomplished. And by the way, can you do our listeners a favor and hold up the book and actually show?
Absolutely. I'm not sure. There you will see it. Yes. It's still the watermark because it's a pre-release version.
Yeah.
But yes, so this is the copy that you will have in a couple of weeks now.
And do me a favor and actually pronounce the title of the book in French, because I know I can't even spell français. So yes. I will not say it correctly.
No problem. So, les 6 habitudes des avant-ventes efficaces.
Say it one more time. I love that.
Les 6 habitudes des avant-ventes efficaces.
Fantastic. It just sounds like poetry coming from your mouth. So what inspired you? And we'll have to share the story about how our relationship started from just a couple of guys who sort of connected on LinkedIn to sort of a step forward. I'll share that story in a minute. What inspired you though to seriously consider this project?
Moving outside of my comfort zone, typically. So there were a few things. So first, I think that this is probably the first book on pre-sales in French. So and even if most of my team and most of the pre-sales in that professions, we are usually not necessarily native, but bilingual in English. So we are used to read book in English, business books, and so on. But at the end of the day, this is not our native language, right? So, any book, any good book, any business book that are constructed in our native language is always just easier for us mentally, and so that was the first thing. And second, I think when you reach out to me and when you discuss about that criteria to translate the book in French, my first reaction was, this is a crazy idea. And after 10 seconds, I realized I love it. Let's give it a try and see how it goes. And a few months after, here we are.
Yeah. Well, and there's so much about what you just said that I love. First of all, pushing yourself outside of a comfort zone. And honestly, those of us in pre-sales, that we sort of need to live on that edge of our comfort zone. If we're not constantly pushing ourselves, and searching for that edge and then pushing ourselves beyond, I don't think we're keeping ourselves as sharp as we should be. If I may, hence the habit number 6, which is to perfect and constantly be improving and perfecting ourselves. Number 1. Number 2, hearing you say, my first thought was, that's crazy. How many times have we considered maybe a unique demo approach, right, or a unique approach in an engagement that maybe sounds a little crazy, but sometimes the craziest ideas are the best ideas. So, I think there's actually a miniature lesson just in that.
Absolutely. And, this is, I mean, the beauty of it, is not just about translating the book. It's about, thinking on how to translate it, thinking about the launch, doing the, marketing about the launch, getting to know how, publishing a book is about, right? Working
Exactly.
with Amazon, working with the different distributor. And this is what I like, actually, very much. It's understanding how that ecosystem is working.
Yes.
And given the kind of company I'm working for, all in in marketing, in digital, and so on, actually I am living what some of our customers and accounts are actually working. So I'm living the real life of my customer as well. So it was a good insight for that as well.
You're right, and what a great experience, and what a great career learning experience for you.
Yes.
And honestly, for anybody who might be listening, before I published the book for the first time, it seemed like an impossible task. Not just writing the book, but to your point, how do I get it listed on Amazon? How do I get the international, the ISBN, and how do you market, and all those things? And you're right, once you go through it for the first time, like many things in life, it doesn't seem as big and complicated and scary as we make it out to be, right? And here you are, you're owning and managing the launch and the book and the publication on Amazon France, right? And so, and from your perspective, given that you're, like you said, you're now doing what a lot of your customers and the customers that you're serving have to do. I mean, what an incredible. Incidentally, Xavier, I have to give a shout out to Matt Elsom. He's so gracious. He always he joins many of these sessions. And yes, Matt, I agree. It sounds much better in French. I think everything sounds better in French, although
in Spanish. But I wouldn't be able to pronounce your book in Spanish.
Indeed,
Rafa would, but not myself. So I won't be able to try.
So what are some of the lessons that you learned while or during the translation in terms of the actual translation of the concepts from English to French? Did most of the concepts translate pretty cleanly?
Yes, I mean the concepts are translated very, very cleanly. At the end of the day, the main benefit that I got from the translation is that I probably had to read the book probably 5 or 6 times by now. So I almost know it by heart, or close enough from it. So now, and I, maybe some of my teams are in the session now, and yes, I might be even more orthodox than you on the concept of the book. So that was the main maybe benefit or collateral damage of it. But otherwise, in French, in Italian, in Spanish, in German, at the end of the day, the role that we do will translate.
Yeah.
And that was also actually one of my objectives of translating the book, is that the pre-sale role is very established in the US.
Yes.
It's very established in the UK. Less so in in the other Western countries. So one way of translating the book in French and in Spanish with Rafa, and maybe in other languages tomorrow, is also to spread the word about pre-sales, what the role is about, and gaining more momentum about the role. And I think this is critical, right? We are recruiting like crazy, but as of now, I am recruiting more people that are new to the role that I'm training using the framework and using the book, more than recruiting, pre-sale from experience.
Amazing. That's just amazing for me to hear. Were there any changes that you had to make, or sort of slight modifications that you had to make to fit the French market a little bit more appropriately?
Well, not really. I mean, the concept applies, almost perfectly. And as I told you at the beginning, when I read the book, it was as if you were in my brain, and so it was very close from what I was already doing. The book helped me being much more consistent and systematic on the approach. So no, not really. The main issue was about translating some of the very American phrase and sentences that you've been using.
Like hit the ball at the park.
Yes. This is one, but there are a few others, and right now they are. I don't have it in mind, but there are some very American phrases that I obviously couldn't translate literally, otherwise that wouldn't make any sense. But and all the NFL reference as well. Not on so I localize some of the translations to the League One and so on. But otherwise it's more or less applied.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny you should say that. I have been accused of being very American at times, which of course I consider a great compliment. We have another comment here from, I hope I'm saying this right, Raisa. Definitely the best sales book out there. Raisa, thank you so much for your comments. Really delighted to hear from you, and glad you've taken a few minutes to join us.
Actually, Raisa is in my team, and it was one of the few French reviewer of the book. So she helped me on this.
Excellent. Well, we'll be sure to send her a signed copy, and that actually this is a good moment to share that. So you and I connected. Our sort of relationship, if I can use that term, sort of took a step up. You posted something on LinkedIn about the book, and we really hadn't talked, we hadn't met, but I was so touched by your comment that I remember I think I responded and said, I need to send you a signed copy for the comment that you just shared. And of course, I made good on my word, and I reached out to you on the side, and I asked for your address, and I sent you a signed copy to Paris. And I think shortly thereafter, you and I had a conversation, and of course, the business relationship and friendship sort of started there. So I hope you realize that now you're going to be asked to send some signed copies. I mean, I'm still flattered, by the way, when people, ask me for a signed copy. But I hope you get your pen ready, because that's coming for you as well, I suspect.
Yeah. I think my signed copy of your book in English is here.
Oh, there you go. In fact, I forgot that. I think I even looked up I looked up on Google Translate what I wanted to say, and I wrote it in French. Now that I think
yes, you wrote it in French indeed, and without any typo.
Excellent. Well, clearly I didn't do as well on LinkedIn. So as you reflect on the book, and I know at this point you know it very well, what are some of your favorite either sayings or concepts? I have a few that I refer to on the regular, and many people know them, so I'll spare the audience for a moment. But do you have a couple that rise to the top for you as some of your favorite sort of concepts or sayings?
I think I've been using and actually localizing the shovel story pretty significantly. In QBR, actually, I was in QBR today and during the entire week, and I've been using that story a couple of times with sales rep. That was interesting. So this one is very good. I think the check down on whenever you have a question, start with a visual, a verbal answer, then a visual clue, and then you deep dive into it is a very insightful. And I have one team member in my team who has been doing a bit like a session this afternoon and it was part of the exercise. We didn't know necessarily what was the question that the customer would be asking to show. So it was part of the exercise. So it was a bit like risky, but using that framework helped her as well, managing expectation without going too deep into the answers that we'll be providing. And the last one is the 4Ds system, based on the people that are in the room to manage as well objections, very, very clearly based on whether the question is in context or out of context, and whether the people asking is part of the decision making or not. And those two concepts are used in my team pretty extensively, and I hope that it's getting used broadly.
It's interesting you should say that. I would say, and you've actually come up with a better way to talk about the 4Ds that I have, because I didn't call it the 4Ds, but now I'm referring to it as the 4Ds. I'd say that's one of the more popular and more well-referenced concepts or frameworks in the book. As I've done some work with Citrix, and I've done some work with Sugar CRM and some other large companies, and that seems to resonate a great deal.
Yes, and especially at least at Sprinkler, we're not necessarily doing a lot of very large presentation. We are more on the smaller sessions with 2 or 3 decision maker, but relatively high level. But the very few times that we need to do it with like 5, 10, 15, or even, I think actually one of the first time I used the 4Ds approach was actually with Raisa, and we were doing, not we, she was running the show in front of 80 people, and we were 4 or 5 people backing her up on the Q&A. And using that approach, we've been able to manage roughly, I think, 100 questions by the audience during an hour, responding live, and always on spot, without going into too much details. But using that framework really helped us being super effective during this one. I think, it was exactly 9 months ago, Raisa. I don't know if you remember. Yes, that was fun indeed.
Raisa said she remembers indeed. Incidentally, we have Nicolas. I hope it's Gasset or Gasset. I'm not sure. And Nicolas, please forgive me. So he's inspired to read the book. So Nicolas, delighted to hear that. Are there any advice applicable to customer success? Now, I think there are, and I can certainly share some thoughts. But before I do, Xavier, do you care to share your opinion on that one?
Absolutely. And Nicolas, thank you very much for that very, very valid question. At the end of the day, I strongly believe that the success management role and the pre-sales role are very, very much similar. We are just at a different stage of the sales and the customer cycle, but at the end of the day, we are doing very similar. We are the only difference is that usually, our core role is about convincing people to buy. The core role of the success team is to convince the end users and the customer to stay with us. But at the end of the day, champions can change, champion can move, So we are success managers or pre-sales. We are both in the success business. In the conviction business. So yes, most of it applies. Most of the book applies. And if the discovery, the probe habit in English, applies absolutely to the success. All of it actually, most of it actually, I would say would apply.
I too, and of course I don't know how many people who are with us or maybe listen after the fact know the 6 habits or don't, and I won't go through all 6 habits, but certainly. The partnership with sales, customer success has to constantly be in sync with account managers, account execs, and discovery. To me, any customer success engagement with a customer needs to include some discovery, right? We need to understand what are the pain points, what are they struggling with, what are the challenges, what do they think the problems are, etc. and certainly, we talk about preparing and practicing. So yeah, I think there's a lot of goodness there.
And to continue, I think it absolutely applies to the sales team as well, like the account executive. I have maybe not all, but a good portion of my sales team have read the book at least partially.
Yeah.
Introduction and a couple of other parts, chapters, but have been read by my sales team.
Yeah, and I know the answer to this question, or at least I have an answer to this question, so I'm leading the witness a little bit. But from your vantage point, what's the value to salespeople reading this and reading the book?
First, it's about a better relationship with their pre-sales. So improving the partnership, and also understanding how we work.
Yes.
How our brain is wired, literally. Yeah. So this is really the main benefit, and for them to understand what we need to be successful.
Yes.
We need to be ready. We need to be prepared, even if with the experience, we might need less and less preparation, and we can be a bit more freestyle, or at least this is the way I became with the experience. But at the end of the day, we are wired differently. And actually, just before that session, I was on a discussions with one of my former pre-sales who became account executive, and that gentleman was from the very beginning. I realized that he was wired differently than I was, and he was a great SE, and he became an excellent account exec because he was wired differently up front. So yes, we are different, and for the account exec that are coming after 10, 15, 20 years of experience of pure, hunting kind of sales, it might sometimes be a bit difficult to understand how we are wired and how we are operating.
Well, and it's interesting, as you were speaking, Xavier, I found myself thinking, well, a couple thoughts, but one thought was we could almost take the book, change the title to How to Communicate with Your Sales Engineer to Produce Better Results, and almost not change a word and put it in the hands of salespeople. But then I thought,
actually, this is actually a very good idea. We might have more a wider niche of buyers.
we might have a larger target market and sell more books. But no, in all sincerity, maybe that's one of the next books, right? Which is we take the 6 habits. We wouldn't have to change much. We just change sort of the context of the message, and the title becomes not the 6 habits of highly effective sales engineers, but how to communicate and work with your sales, and how to partner with your sales engineer to produce better results. That's it. By the way, we have a few more people chiming in here, and pronounce her name for me because I will get it wrong.
Cécile.
Thank you, Cécile. Well, Cécile, thank you so much for joining. And I think I can get this one, Sylvain. I remember Sylvain, so good to see you, Sylvain. And he's the one actually out in San Diego, right? Or California?
San Francisco.
San Francisco. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Very good.
We are everywhere.
Yeah, indeed. What if you could add something to the book? And I know you did. You added a few of your own sort of interjections and observations and thoughts as you did the translation. I'm correct about that?
Yes, no, absolutely. I added a couple of specific items, especially on the on the probe habits. So I added some aspect into it. That applies maybe to more Latin buyers, if you will, because culturally speaking, we are not American. And we are proud of being different. That's fine.
As you should be, yeah.
But so the way we are interacting with Spanish buyers, French buyers, Italian buyers is just, slightly more, slightly different. So the way you would manage the entire interaction and discussion, and especially questioning, it's different. If when I am doing business sometimes that happened to me in my career to have business in Germany, this is a bit more rigid sometimes than in Spain or in France, and that's fine. Just so always, and this is something that I added in the probe chapter, is about how to understand really the dynamic, and especially the dynamics in a multinational or international audience, because as when you are in a B2B business like us, coming from the US, sometimes, not every time, but sometimes we feel that the American company are working with American company without necessarily realizing that the very big American company are actually international companies and global companies, right? So yes, I was discussing with earlier with the account team of Telefonica. Telefonica is a massive group.
Of course, they're huge.
Particularly in Spain, but it's massive in Latin, massive in Brazil, massive. So you need to adapt to that global audience and that global buying, and so I added a couple of things about this in the book.
Yeah. Are there other things, or is there anything else, if you could rewrite the book yourself, or if you could add habit number 7, is there anything that you would add to the book, or if you were responsible for writing the next version, right, or the next edition, is there anything you would change significantly?
I think that we could take the habit number 6 and almost spend the entire book on this one only, which is about the performing and getting better or what we do. The 20 habits or so that you have written originally in the book, I think we could almost write 20 chapters,
no doubt,
on each of the habits that you had in the chapter number 6.
Yeah.
The other one for me that was very much important was about probe, the qualification, the discovery.
Yeah.
I think that was the one aspect where historically I was a bit weak, and I think my team was a bit weak as well historically, and we got way better because I realized it, and second because also with the book I enforced it as well. But yes, on this one, I think we could write an entire book on probe, on probe alone.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. What, from your vantage point, do you think is the most important habit? If you could, and maybe you can't put your finger on one.
I think that the most important is really about probe. I mean the qualification, the discovery. I think at the end of the day, and when I am interviewing in my team, and when I ask to define what presales is, it's simple. It's actually 3 words, right? It's pain, solution, value.
That's good.
At the end of the day, this is all we do, right? We identify, we qualify, and we quantify the pain. Once we have that pain quantified and qualified, then only we craft a solution, and from that solution we demonstrate the value of that solution that solved that pain.
Yeah.
If you don't have anything to solve, you won't sell anything.
Yeah.
Regardless of the price, regardless of the competition.
Yeah.
Right. So if you don't start with the pain and you quantify that pain, this is what we call the why anything at Sprinkler. Why anything? If you don't have a why anything strong enough, you won't sell anything. So to me, this is the one habit that not necessarily the most important. I mean, this is the one that if you don't have it in your blood, you won't succeed.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
the rest,
No, I completely agree with that. To me, if we don't get that right, it almost doesn't matter what we say. It almost doesn't matter what we say, show, or do.
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you will waste your time, you will waste the time of your customer.
Yeah.
So it's literally a nonsense to spend any time if we don't quantify the value, the pain that the customer has.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting, as you were speaking, I was reminded of a conversation that I had with, interestingly enough, some German colleagues of mine when I was still running sales enablement for a technology company. I was in Berlin for I was in Munich. I was in Munich for a workshop. And at the end of the workshop, we were going through a list of some of the customers or some of the prospects that we're dealing with. And I just started asking one gentleman in particular, why might they buy blank? Why might they buy blank? And his answer to almost all of them, and his answer to the first couple had something to do with the product. He said, well, because the product does blank. And I went, well, and then the second one was, well, because the product does blank. And finally I went, they're not going to buy it. That's not a reason why they're going to buy. My question is, what problem do they have, or what goal do they have that they can't reach without us or our solution, right? That they can't get to. That's why. And if we haven't identified why, right? It's either a pain or it's an objective, right? There's not really an opportunity here.
And actually, usually, and if I may interject here, to me, this is only about the pain, because even the objective, you need to wonder yourself, why do you have that objective?
Right.
No company sets an objective for the sake of the objective, right? It's about solving a problem. The objective is the beginning of the solution. But why do they have that objective in the first place?
Exactly.
So it's all about understanding the why the objective, the why the problem, and what they are currently not able to do. What are the negative consequences of that inability?
Yep.
And once you have the problem, the inability, and then the negative consequences of that inability, then you can figure out an ideal state and the positive consequences of that ideal state, which is hopefully a solution that costs millions of dollars for you. But at the end of the day, this is all it is. So that's why probing, qualifying, and discovering the pain is the most important thing.
Yep, I agree. All right, so Xavier, we believe it or not, we've almost been at this for about 40 minutes, and I certainly want to be respectful of your time and everybody who may be listening after the fact or who has joined us live. I actually have an interesting question for you that you may not have seen coming, and it may take you a minute to answer.
Okay.
And even worse, I'm not going to have any idea what you're saying, because I'm going to ask you if you would like to briefly go through the 6 habits and give a very brief description of each of the habits in French.
In French, okay.
In French. So I will listen, but I won't understand. But if we have anybody, I want to do so because if we have anybody listening now or anybody who listens after the fact, I'd love for them to hear and this is sort of your opportunity to give sort of an elevator pitch, right?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
A brief overview of the 6 habits in French. Is that something you'd like to take on?
So
listening to this, Xavier did not see this coming.
No, I haven't. And unlike the habit number 3, which is about preparing, I didn't drive on it at all.
Exactly.
And I haven't rehearsed. But so we will give it a try. Donc, le livre de Chris, avant tout, en fait, est de comprendre que, en tant qu'avant-vente, nous sommes tous dans l'équipe commerciale. j'aime à dire avec mes équipes que dans avant-vente, il y a vente, d'accord? Et que peu importe votre background, que ce soit ingénieur, technicien, commercial, business, marketing, peu importe, vous êtes maintenant dans l'équipe commerciale. Je pense que c'est la base, déjà, de bien comprendre le rôle. Et après, donc les 6 habitudes de Chris, donc la toute première, déjà, c'est de aussi comprendre que dans l'avant-vente, on fait un binôme avec le commercial. On pourrait même dire un trinôme avec le success manager, comme disait tout à l'heure Nicolas, mais on va se concentrer maintenant sur le binôme entre le commercial et l'avant-vente. Et donc, dans cette habitude-là, c'est comment est-ce que vous allez communiquer avec le commercial, comment mettre en gros les règles de collaboration entre vous et le ou la commercial. Ensuite, l'habitude numéro 2, c'est comment est-ce que vous allez qualifier votre deal. Comment est-ce que vous allez découvrir la pain de votre client pour comprendre ses enjeux. Comme je l'ai dit en anglais avec Chris, c'est extrêmement important de comprendre les enjeux pour ensuite en déduire une solution, puis la valeur. Après, l'habitude numéro 3, c'est ce qu'on appelle donc prepare avec le livre de Chris. Donc, c'est se préparer et être certain d'être prêt dans ce que vous allez présenter au client. Donc, c'est aussi préparer le contenu par rapport à l'histoire que vous voulez raconter. Et après, juste derrière, le numéro 4, c'est comment est-ce que vous allez répéter vos meetings importants avec votre commercial. Et enfin, les habitudes numéro 5 et 6, c'est ce que j'ai un peu anglicisé en français, c'est ce qu'on appelle le performer. C'est comment est-ce qu'une fois que le rideau s'ouvre et que vous rentrez sur scène, comment est-ce que vous allez être au top de votre performance devant les différentes personnes que vous avez en face de vous. Et l'habitude numéro 5 et 6, c'est une série de bonnes pratiques. Il y en a une vingtaine que Chris a listé et que j'ai traduit, qui sont toutes en soi des potentiels chapitres à eux tout seuls. Et voilà, en gros, comment vous allez lire tout ça en à peu près 3h30. Moi, personnellement, la première fois que je l'ai lu en 3h30 sur un aller-retour entre Paris et Lisbonne. Voilà, Chris. That's it.
Fantastic. I love it. I don't know what you said. I was able to follow along with the habits, but that was, by the way, I didn't time you, but that was less than 5 minutes. That was fabulous.
I would say 3 minutes, roughly.
Sorry?
I would say 3 minutes, give or take.
Yeah. That was fantastic. Well, like I said, anybody listening, he did not see that coming, but I have to say, Xavier, it's unbelievably satisfying for me to hear other people talk about the framework. And when I hear people like yourself and Rafa, who translated the Spanish version, speak and talk through the framework in another language, it's just so satisfying for me. And you and I have talked about this before. Honestly, sometimes I don't feel like I came up with a framework. Sometimes, or discovered the framework. Sometimes I feel like the framework sort of discovered me. Like, to me, it's just truth. What we talk about is just, it's the truth about our role and what we do and what makes us successful. And I think some people look at the framework and think, well, it seems pretty basic, almost too basic. It's not rocket science. And to me,
no, it's not.
That's precisely the value. Would you agree with that?
No, it's precisely not rocket science. And at the end of the day, this is the beauty of it. But if you ask, any great, elite athletes, what the great athletes are doing is not rocket science.
Right.
They are just working very hard, consistently for years. And at the end of the day, this is what we do, right?
Perfecting the basics. Perfecting the basics.
It's about perfecting the basics. The basics are by definition not complex. The complexity comes with applying it consistently the right way, even when it's hard.
Yeah.
Even when it's it's not natural to apply them. Then you apply it again and again and again, and then that becomes muscle memory.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, in 5 years from now, whether because of the English or French version, if I can have 5, 10, 50, 100 essays applying that consistently as a muscle memory, then I think Chris, and maybe I, with my humble translation, we would have won, right? At the end of the day, this is what we both, and Rafa and the rest of the pre-sales thought leaders or trying to be, just this is what we are expecting to have at some point.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. Incidentally, we have a few more people that I just want to. Akash, Maru, thank you so much for being with us. Mariano joined us. He said, "I realize I need to improve my French." Indeed, clearly I do. And we had just another LinkedIn user, sort of an unnamed LinkedIn user. So Xavier, we're about 15 minutes in. I do want to be respectful of your time and everyone else's time. I know it's late in France. I appreciate you taking the time. Any closing thoughts from you as you sort of reflect on the translation and where we are? We're about to launch. So the official launch day is Wednesday, May 19th.
Correct.
And it will be available on Amazon.France, Amazon.fr, Amazon.com, Amazon. Fill in the blank. We are doing a special launch day price of 99 cents on Kindle, €10, $10 on Amazon.com. It's been an unbelievable journey. And just on a personal note, thank you so much for investing your time and your commitment to this project. Any sort of closing thoughts from you? Just pausing for a moment and reflecting on the project and what you've accomplished at this point.
Whether it's translating a book or doing something else. I think the very definition of our role is about creative and about being genuinely curious. So whether it's during your discovery, whether it's like me deciding in November to translate a book, whatever that is, do that. Try, get out of your comfort zone, challenge yourself. It's super rewarding, and I remember the first time I told to my wife that I would be translating your book. She looked at me like, okay, whatever, do it. But at the end of the day, this is what our role is to understand our customers and to inspire them, right? And so to inspire, you need to be a bit crazy, and I am more than happy. I can say that I am a bit crazy sometimes, but this is what defines us, us pre-sales at the end of the day. That creativity, that genuine curiosity, that set us apart, and that put us probably in the best position in the software industry.
Yeah. Those words are so powerful. Creative, pushing the envelope. Curiosity, a little bit of crazy sometimes, and that's fantastic. And honestly, Xavier, I feel like I've made a lifelong friend and colleague, and it's just been a delight to work with you. So thank you again so much for working on this effort. Congratulations on getting to the finish line. We'll actually cross the goal line on the 19th. So we'll be making all kinds of noise on LinkedIn for the next couple of weeks. And we want to invite everybody to get yourself a copy on the 19th and help us spike on Amazon and spread the word. It's been a well-received piece of work by the community, and hopefully you'll get a lot out of it too. So Xavier, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And I know you and I will be talking again very soon. So, and folks, anybody who stuck around to the end, Thank you so much. I'm always flattered by the people that care to join and give up their time, and anybody who took a moment to listen to the recording. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris.
All right. Be well. We'll see you.